suicide, drug use, violence, and blasphemy have long been common themes in rock albums and at many concerts. But now, according to sources, they're beginning to hurt the rock industry. Sam Walker has this report, but we'd like to caution you that this story does contain some material that may shock you and you may not want your children to see or hear.
For 2 years now, the rock music industry has been, well, rocked by controversy over lyrics, themes, and onstage acts that many parents of the children who flock to the concerts find offensive. In the nation's capital last week, the Beastie Boys, the latest rage in rock, were forced by concerned parents groups to be good before television cameras.
So if your parents don't want you to come here and see us, what we're doing, maybe you should go home and tell them that you just had a good time and you know what you're doing.
In Washington, the group was denied the freedom to display a 20-foot hydraulic male sex organ on stage, among other displays and antics used at a recent concert in Columbus, Georgia. The incident was only the latest in what is turning into a national confrontation over rock. In 1985, rock star Frank Zappa helped head off a push for a rating system on rock albums by proposing that all lyrics be printed inside.
If you consider that the public needs to be warned about the contents of the records, what better way than to let them see exactly what the songs say? That way you don't have to put any kind of subjective rating on the record. You don't have to call it R, X, D, A, anything. You can read it for yourself.
Zappa rose in opposition to a group of congressional wives called the Parents Music Resource Center. The PMRC, organized to expose offensive rock themes and lyrics, obtained an agreement with the recording industry a year ago that lyrics would be made available on record jackets or album covers, and that any records with explicit lyrics would carry a warning label.
Right. Some of the album covers are very explicit. In fact, they look like they should be in Playboy or Penthouse, some of them. And they're in the record bins available to young children. But others, you can't tell. I bought the Purple Rain album for our 11-year-old, and I didn't know that Darling Nikki was on it, and I felt that it was inappropriate for her and her 8- and 6-year-old sister to hear a song describing a girl masturbating in a hotel lobby.
But so far, the PMRC has been dissatisfied with the recording industry's compliance with the agreement, despite the findings of 2 polls showing 75 to 80% adult support for warning labels. Meanwhile, the Reverend Jimmy Swaggart has taken the lead among TV preachers, calling rock music the new pornography. His charges last year were credited with dealing the most severe blow yet to the rock industry. The 890-store, 22-state Walmart discount department store chain pulled 32 rock and teen magazines, as well as albums of some heavy metal rock groups. President Reagan even got into the act, saying in a Newsweek interview last August that the musicians make no secret of the fact that they are drug users. The remark elicited strong reaction like this one from Tower Records chain owner Russ Solomon. All these people, Reagan and the Washington wives, are chasing after phantoms that they've invented when there's nothing there. Your first name is Dirt, and your last name is Sleaze. You're a sex junkie, you'll do as I please. This lyric from the Plasmatics album Metal Priestess, and this one from Motley Crue's album Theater of Pain, epitomizes what alarms many parents about rock lyrics. Take your body like a hammer and nail. Slide down my knees, taste my sword. The question is, will you please us all tonight? We need a lover tonight.
There's no obscenity there overtly. There's no 4-letter word. But you put that together, slide down my knees, taste my sword. Can you feel the power inside a night? You're singing about oral sex. There's a sense of domination. This is violent sexuality.
Pastor Eric Holmberg threw away his entire 800-album rock music collection when he became a Christian. He now speaks on college campuses against rock music. CBN News asked Holmberg about charges by the rock music industry like this one, in the latest issue of Spin magazine, charging rock censorship.
The last thing we would say is, hey, let's pass some laws, and let's set up a board with people judging what's good and what's bad. I mean, that can be used against Christians as well as anybody else. Now, this is a free country. I believe in the First Amendment. And we simply want the people to be aware of what's going on and say, hey, if you don't like this, stop buying the albums. That's what we're doing, and that's what people are attempting to do against us. We're the censors. They're not. A little hypocritical, I think.
The rock industry is fighting back with humorous ads like this one on MTV that make light of anti-rock attitudes as anti-fun.
Spokesman for the channel was pelted with tomatoes by an anti-party, anti-fun crowd who consider the countdown and the party zone too much excitement for one evening.
Parents are becoming increasingly alarmed at music and videos like this one, once again on MTV, that depict parents humorously as nuisances to be pushed out of the way. Once again, the Beastie Boys.
And don't make a mess.
Do you like parties?
Yeah.
We can invite all our friends and have soda and pie.
Yeah.
I hope no bad people show up.
Of course, bad people do show up, the Beastie Boys, to fight for your right to party and tear the house to pieces in the process. The ongoing fight over rock music is not over whether such themes are present, but over whether the themes are objectionable and whether parents will be allowed to object. This is Sam Walker, CBN News.
Very interesting. I guess the concept is people say, well, why is all the argument about the rock and roll? What is the problem? You know, I bet you most parents have the foggiest idea what goes on at a rock concert because, well, that's for children and it's good and wholesome fun, because a lot of parents still think that the rock concerts were like the rock concerts of old. Remember the song that the Beatles used to sing, like, I want to hold your hand?
Right now they're holding a lot more
Scandalous behavior. I want to hold your hand.
You know, I think, Ben, we know we'll get into more of this, but sitting down talking with your children about these things and say, you know, why are you choosing this? Build value systems into them and then talk to them about it. Look at the lyric sheets as Tipper Gore did. She bought the album first, then she saw what she had bought afterwards. But we need to do that. We need
I think you put your finger on a very key issue, Scott, is building values into people's lives. Where do values come from? Values come from things that people are taught, things that they hear, things that they see, and things that become acceptable, and those things translate sooner or later into values. And if what is being continually taught to someone, what's going in their ear gate and eye gate, eventually begins to become that which they are. You know, the Bible says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Well, recently, both Danuta and Scott were able to talk with a couple of people who could be considered experts on the current rock music situation. And here are those interviews. First, Danuta.
Our next guest is a mother of 4 who has channeled her outrage over sexually explicit rock music lyrics into action. She has waged a tireless battle against the record industry giants to compel them to provide warning labels on albums with questionable lyrics. She says they're making progress, but fight has just begun. Please welcome to the 700 Club the co-founder of Parents Music Resource Center and author of a new book called Raising Kids in an X-Rated Society. Welcome, Tipper Gore. Hello, Tipper.
Hello, Danuta.
Good to have you here. Thank you for coming. Tipper, how much of what we've just seen and what we're hearing about is just plain teenage rebellion, kids just having fun, and how much of it is deadly, serious, dangerous problems?
Well, I think teenagers are always going to be rebellious, and of course they are going to have fun. What my concern is that these companies and some of these artists are engaged in cultural strip mining. They are selling explicit sex and violence to younger and younger kids. The concern really is preteens and young teenagers, and they don't seem to care about any scars they leave. They take the money and they run. There are themes of sadomasochism, rape, incest, explicit and graphic sexuality in lyrics and in some of the concert acts to an audience of children of any age. And parents have a right to be informed about these changes in content.
Do kids really hear the lyrics? Do they really care what the lyrics say? And for the most part, do most kids really like that kind of stuff?
I think kids do listen to the lyrics. Of course, there's some kids that may not, and I think one of the main attractions to any kind of music is that you like the sound, number one. Mm-hmm. But the lyrics are not unimportant. And the kids nowadays will listen with Walkmans, headsets, that makes lyrics far more distinguishable than in the past. And video now presents a visual image to a song. In fact, some artists don't even like that because it changes the interpretation of the song. It creates an interpretation. Kids know very well what's going on, and the grapevine among the kids that are 9, 10, 11 over explicit lyrics or violent lyrics is as good as it was when I was a kid. They're very tuned in. It's the adults who are not. It's the parents who don't realize some of these changes.
Yeah. If a kid were listening to our conversation right now, chances are you go, oh, those are just parents, those are just grown-ups, they don't know what they're talking about, they just want to cash in on my fun. But in fact, are we finding rock music the new pornography?
I think that we can find, unfortunately, some very explicit sexuality, and some people would call it pornography, in some of the rock music. Yes, it has become a cheap industrial ingredient. Naturally, it sells to the kids. They're very curious. They probably are rather shocked that this is being promoted to them, and yet they don't have the judgment of somebody older.
Well, we were looking on that clip just a moment ago about the Beastie Boys, and there's the publicity that has come out about them taking nude girls on the stage, actually inviting oral sex in front of the concert goers, a phallic symbol the size of 12 feet high. These kinds of things are obviously done for publicity. They're obviously done for making money and getting attention. What are the age of kids going to these kind of concerts?
Well, the new development is exactly what you said, that they would do these graphic things on stage. But also, it's the fact that they're 7, 8, they're 9, 10, 11-year-old kids in the audience. They themselves are quoted in Newsweek magazine as saying, well, we just want to have fun for all the little 13-year-old girls that buy our albums. Well, they know exactly who they're appealing to. 13-year-olds, in some cases younger. The parents that were outraged at some of those concerts where the acts were going on stage had taken their 9 and 10-year-old kids to the concert
without knowing what they were about to see.
Of course, not knowing.
Yeah, we've got some pictures that were printed recently in a teen magazine, or in several different kinds of teen magazines, just to give you an idea of what your teenager may be looking at. This is what?
I'll tell you, this is a group called Judas Priest, and this is their this is the way they promote themselves in a teen magazine, Hit Parader. They had a song about forcing oral sex at gunpoint on an album that sold 2 million copies, primarily to preteens and young adolescents.
Forcing
oral sex at gunpoint on an album called Defenders of the Faith. The song is called Eat Me Alive. This group is Metallica, and this is the way they promote themselves to their young fans in a teen magazine. They have just gone gold. That means that their albums have sold 500,000 copies. It's very significant in the music industry. This is a man called Blackie Lawless, lead singer of a group called Wasp. His stage act has consisted of chaining a woman naked from the waist up to a torture rack and pretending to slit her throat.
This is entertainment? This is what our kids are looking at for entertainment?
Yes. And I think it's time that adults woke up to this fact.
What does that tell you about this society? What does it tell you about our kids? Are we becoming so numbed as a generation that this doesn't affect us anymore? It doesn't affect our children?
My message is that it should affect us very strongly, to take action to make sure that these groups at least inform parents or people in the marketplace about their acts.
Do you seriously believe that groups like that would do something so socially, consciously wholesome as informing parents what they're doing?
Well, for example, Blackie Lawless of the group Wasp have an album out, and it now bears a warning label: explicit lyrics, parental advisory. I think that there's still a lot of work to be done in the area of concerts. There's no information there for parents, and we need that. But one of the dangers of violent entertainment is that it desensitizes us, and that we are raising our children on a massive diet of violence. And television, movies, look at the movies that are popular. Cobra, Commando, television violence in the early evening hours is at an all-time high, according to George Gerbner, who studies this. He's at the University of Pennsylvania. We need to ask ourselves, what are we teaching our children? And pay attention to the experts, the psychologists, the National Council of Churches, and others who are saying we need to reduce the levels of violence in our entertainment because our children are becoming desensitized to it.
And we as a society seem to be becoming desensitized to it unless we do something about it, unless we listen, unless we see, unless we watch what we're doing. I am amazed. I mean, from what I have seen, my times of growing up in the 60s, no one thought you could probably get much worse than that, but it is much worse than that.
It is worse. I grew up in the 60s, and I'd like to say I like rock music, and particularly to kids that are listening and to parents. It's not a question of style, it's a question of content and values, and parents need to tune in to their children's world and understand what they're attracted to and talk with them about it and use it as a tool of communication. But they really need to understand how drastically the content has changed in some of the music.
There were several pictures for teenagers in those teen magazines that we could not show our audience. We could not put it on television. They were so gross. They were so graphic. And this is teenage material. The book, if you'd like to know more and like to do a little bit about being more informed, the name of the book is Raising PG Kids in an X-Rated Society by Tipper Gore. And I would commend you to read it. Tipper, thank you so much for being with us. I appreciate you being here.